All right, so get this. We're going to do a deep dive today on some research about gender bias, like in the digital sharing economy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. Have you ever had that feeling like when you're booking an Airbnb and you're kind of looking at the host's profile and you're like, can I trust this person?
Oh, yeah, totally. I've definitely had that thought like countless times.
Right. It's like, especially with Airbnb, you're letting a stranger stay in your house or you're going and staying at their place.
Yeah.
And so this paper, it's called, get this, Warm Words, Unequal Opportunities.
Yeah.
It actually looks at that feeling.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And it's kind of troubling, actually, some of the things that they found. But also, there's like this, like, surprisingly easy fix. So that's kind of cool.
Okay, so what did they find? What was the problem?
Well, so, you know how the whole digital sharing economy basically hinges on trust?
Yeah.
Like you're hopping into a stranger's car or you're renting their apartment. You know, it's all about that.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
But this paper, it points out that there's this, like, proven gender gap.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of a broader problem that we see, but, you know, we've all heard those stories about women getting lower rates, like for the same freelance gig, just because of their name.
Oh, yeah.
And so this study, it looks specifically at Airbnb, and unfortunately it kind of finds that, like, those biases that we all have, they're definitely playing out on the platform.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and specifically they found that male hosts, they're often starting off with, like, a trust deficit just because they're men.
That's a problem.
Yeah, it is. And it's not just like some academic thing, you know.
Right.
Like this actually has real consequences for these hosts. The paper actually points out that it can lead to lower demand and it can even force hosts to lower their prices.
Oh, well, that's not good.
No, it's not good. So when you're thinking about, you know, booking an Airbnb, you know, what are you looking for?
Well, I guess you're looking for someone who seems welcoming, trustworthy, you know, like you said, someone who you can trust.
Right, exactly. And this paper references this thing called uncertainty reduction theory, which basically says that when we're in situations that are unfamiliar, we want to gather information to, you know, feel more comfortable.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So a host's bio becomes this, like, really crucial piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
It's our chance to, like, size them up.
Right. Figure out if we trust them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what I think is so interesting about this paper is they use some pretty high-tech methods to analyze these bios. So they actually trained this, like, deep learning model. It's basically AI to analyze all these profiles and figure out what makes a host seem trustworthy.
Okay, hold on. Deep learning AI, explain that to me like I'm 5 years old.
Okay, so imagine, like, you're teaching a computer to read emotions. You feed it all these examples of happy faces, sad faces, angry faces, and eventually it learns to recognize the patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Deep learning is kind of like that, but instead of faces, they're analyzing text, in this case, like the host bios.
Oh, so they basically taught a computer to, like, read between the lines of these bios.
Exactly, yeah, and that's where things get really interesting. So the researchers, they wanted to see if greetings, you know, those simple words like hi or hello or welcome.
Yeah.
Like if those had any impact on how trustworthy the host seemed.
Wait, are you serious? Like, are you telling me that something as basic as, like, welcome to my humble abode could actually, like, sway potential guests?
That is exactly what they wanted to find out, and the results are pretty surprising. So remember we were talking about how, like, men often start off at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
The study found that by including a greeting, it actually significantly helped to reduce that bias, making male hosts appear more trustworthy.
No way. Like, really, just a greeting can level the playing field.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And, like, think about it. Greetings are like the online equivalent of a smile.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they create a sense of warmth. They signal, you know, this host is probably going to be welcoming and helpful.
Yeah.
So even though those greetings might seem, you know, superficial, they actually tap into something deeper. Like it's almost a subconscious cue that makes us feel more at ease.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah. So they help bridge that trust gap and create like a more positive first impression. And actually the data backs it up. Including a greeting can actually increase a male host's perceived trustworthiness by a couple of percentage points, which might not seem like a lot, but in the world of Airbnb, it could make a big difference.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It really is amazing, you know, to think that just like adding a simple greeting can make such a big difference.
Right. And you know what I thought was really impressive about this study? They didn't just like look at greetings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they looked at a ton of other factors that could influence, like, how trustworthy a host seems, like the length of their bio, how long they've been on the platform, the type of property, even the city it's in.
Oh, wow. So, like, they went all in on this research.
Yeah, they did. Like, full Sherlock Holmes,
All right, they had to control for all those other factors.
Exactly. Yeah. So they used, like, some pretty serious statistics to isolate the impact of those greetings, and make sure that the findings were, like, solid.
So, like, what other things did they look at?
Oh, they looked at, like, everything.
Yeah.
Whether the host had, like, verified their identity, how many reviews they had, like, if they offered things like instant booking, even the price of the listing. Like, they wanted to make sure that the impact of the greeting wasn't just, like, a fluke,
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so even after considering all that, like, the power of those warm words still held up.
Wow, that's wild.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So what do you think this means for, like, platforms like Airbnb? Can they do anything with this information? Like,
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the big takeaways from this research is that platforms, they could actually encourage hosts to use greetings in their bios, like maybe even make it part of their recommended guidelines.
right, that seems like a pretty easy change to make,
Yeah, just like a little nudge in the right direction.
Yeah, and it could have a big impact.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a low-cost way to potentially make the platform, more inclusive and equitable.
Yeah.
It's a win-win, I think, for both the hosts and the guests.
And it's not just Airbnb, right? This research has implications for, all sorts of parts of the digital sharing economy, like ride sharing, food delivery, freelance work, like any platform where trust is important.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Encouraging that warm, welcoming language, I think, could really be like a game changer across the board.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want to feel more comfortable when they're booking a service online? Like, it's just...
For sure.
Yeah, this is really making me think about how I present myself online. Like, maybe I need to sprinkle in a few more warm words in my profiles.
Yeah. It's a good reminder for all of us, I think.
Yeah.
We tend to focus, on the big things, like our profile picture or like our accomplishments or, using fancy words and stuff.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's the small things, those simple things, that really make the biggest difference.
So, like, beyond greetings, what are some other examples of, like, those warm words that people can use to boost their, like, online trust factor?
Well, I think it's about using phrases that make people feel like you're approachable and helpful and genuinely interested in connecting with them. Things like, I'm happy to answer any questions you have, or, I'm always available to help make your stay more comfortable. Like,
Yeah.
little things like that can really go a long way.
And even just, like, using a friendly conversational tone can make a difference, too.
Oh, for sure.
Right.
Absolutely, yeah. Imagine you're like chatting with a friend.
Yeah.
You'd probably smile,
Yeah.
make eye contact, you'd use a warm tone of voice.
Yeah.
We can translate those same principles to our online interactions.
Yeah.
It's all about creating that sense of genuine connection, even through a screen.
So it's not just about, like, the specific words. It's also about the overall, like, vibe we're giving off.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, we need to digitally radiate those warm and fuzzy feelings.
Yes.
Exactly. And I think that's what's so exciting about this research.
Yeah.
It shows that we actually have a lot more control over how we're perceived online than we think.
Right.
It's like we all have these, like, secret trust-boosting superpowers.
Yeah.
We just need to learn how to use them.
Right. And the more we do that, the better the online world will be, right?
Okay.
More
Sure.
trust, more connection, more positive interactions. Like, who wouldn't want that?
I couldn't agree more. It's about creating a digital space where everyone feels, welcome and valued.
You know what I find so interesting about this whole, like, warm words concept? It's not about being, like, politically correct or trying to manipulate people. It's really about connecting with people
Yeah, for sure.
and building trust, especially in a world that can sometimes feel pretty impersonal.
I totally agree. It's like you said earlier, it's about radiating those warm and fuzzy feelings, even through a screen, and
Yeah.
recognizing that we're all human. We crave connection.
Right. It's like that saying, people might not remember what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And that's even more important, in the digital world.
Right.
Because you don't have those face-to-face cues.
Exactly. We can't see someone's body language,
Yeah.
or hear the subtle nuances in their voice.
Yeah.
So the words we choose, they really matter.
Yeah.
They become the primary way we convey our intentions and build those first impressions.
So going back to the Airbnb study, they found that these greetings were especially effective for like reducing bias against male hosts.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it goes back to what we've been talking about, those societal expectations around gender roles.
Mm-hmm.
Men are often expected to be more assertive, less emotional, whereas women are often expected to be more nurturing, caring. So a greeting from a male host might actually challenge those stereotypes.
So it's like those warm words they're sending a signal saying, hey, I'm not just like some stereotypical dude. I'm a friendly, welcoming person.
Right, exactly. And that can be really powerful when you consider that, a lot of people might have unconscious biases that make them perceive men as less trustworthy.
Right.
So it's really helping to bridge that gap by aligning male hosts with those more positive qualities that we typically associate with, hospitality.
It's amazing to me how these small changes in language can make such a big difference. Like, we're not just talking about changing words on a screen. We're talking about changing perceptions and creating a more inclusive online experience for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think it speaks to the power that we all have to shape the online world.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we're not just passive consumers of digital content. We're active participants. We can use our words to build trust, foster connection, and create a more positive experience for everyone.
So as we're wrapping up this deep dive, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this conversation?
I'd say the most important thing to remember is that language matters. Every word we choose, every phrase we type, it has the power to influence how others perceive us. Mm-hmm. And it can even, contribute to perpetuating or mitigating biases.
Right.
So let's all make an effort to use our words intentionally, thoughtfully, that build bridges, not walls, and to create a digital world that feels as warm and as welcoming as a face-to-face interaction.
That's such a great point. Well, thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive. I always love chatting with you about these interesting topics.
The pleasure was all mine. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, and remember, those warm words are out there, so go spread some digital sunshine.
That's exactly.